Okay, so let's ask this question. I want to ask this question, and then we'll get into all the specifics on the numbers. And I think this question is very important. Obviously, this week Robin is another one of my big holdings, and it's one of those things where this is why it's so hard to win in the market. You expect one thing to happen, the other thing happens, and greats that do it year after year, that's why they're respected, because it's very difficult. Here's the question. I'm going to put this in the chat as well. Here's a poll. Are we mentally prepared as a community for Palantir to go back to $30, 35, 32, whatever? Because let's say they put up really good growth, like Robinhood did, 36%. But the street's just like, or the expectations, whatever, right? Whatever idiosyncratic reason they come up with. And then, I mean, I saw a 20% red candle, and you're looking at that like, oh yeah, things can go down, right? And for Palantir, we have not had that experience for the better part of at least 2 months since S&P inclusion. Are we ready? I want to know what the chat thinks and what you guys think. We'll start off with you, Amir, on seeing a stock go down aggressively, even if we have good results.
I mean, can you share what I'm, because it kind of sets the premise, right? So these are the pricing multiples that we're going into the Q3 earnings with, like 245 price to sales, 40 price to sales, 245 price to earnings. So, I mean, it's really lofty there. So anything, as you mentioned, anything but something really extraordinary should probably pull the stock price down. And, you know, this community has been through some stuff. I absolutely believe that this community is ready for a $30 dip. Come on, man. I thought you were going to say like 20 or something, like cut the stock price in half. 30? Come on, man. I mean, this community is more or less hardened. We've been down to the trenches like $5-6. And, you know, the company at this stage is completely different. I'm way more confident in Palantir today than I was when it was at 6, even though it was much better valued. I mean, it was much more attractive as an investment at $6, but I mean, the company is just much more robust today. So I'm more confident in the business prospect today. And I think most of the community would agree. So yeah, $30, yeah, absolutely ready. I don't think it's going to phase anyone or scare anyone out of the stock to see that.
Matt, are you ready for it? But also, do you think the community is ready for it? Just given what you've seen about people buying the stock in the high 40s, are they ready for a dip to 30?
Well, I hope they're buying in the 40s for the hope that, you know, they're looking long-term like I am. I don't think the community is personally ready for it. I think there's a select few. You know, there might be 15, 20, maybe up to 30% of the community that would be okay to stomach it. I still think that there's a lot of newer folks that have entered, and I hope that, you know, this would hopefully be a lesson for them to understand, you know, what is the conviction. And let me put some context around this before everyone thinks Matt's a perma bear, right? I don't want you to put me in the same league as Mr. Patel, as much as I love him.
No one can ever be in the same league. That is a special league of his own.
That's a league of his own, you know. But what I will say, if I was in this to sell it at $50, I wouldn't have this opinion. I'm not here to sell this at $50. I'm here to sell this when it gets to half a $1 trillion market cap, $1 trillion market cap. So I think we're very far away. Plenty of buybacks between now and then. Plenty of volatility between now and then, ups, downs, sideways. And so for me, you know, I can never predict what the stock price will be. And I think somebody said in the chat perfectly, as long as the company is heading in the right direction, and as long as I still feel comfortable overall with where I think the company is performing and what products are coming out with, the culture still remains the same. I don't care if the stock goes down to $30, $20, right? I'm not selling this at 50, right? So to me, you know, I've had people reach out to me. Have I sold any shares? No, I haven't sold any shares. But do I think it's overvalued here? Yeah. So I'm prepared for it to go down. I'm actually hoping it does, so I can buy more. And I hope that other folks or if they love it here at 45 and they're buying at 45, I really hope if it goes down 20, 30% over the next couple of weeks that they continue that enthusiasm and continue to buy and show support.
Can you do a poll? Who's actually buying in the 45s? I'm really curious. I don't think any one of us in this call has bought recently, right?
No. Well, put in the chat. So first of all, we have 71 to 29%. Are you prepared for it going back 30 if it happens? So it seems like at least a decent amount of you are like, okay, if it happens, we're ready to deal with it. Put in the chat if you've been buying at 40. I haven't. Amir, I don't think you have. Arnie, I think Matt hasn't either. So yeah, put in the chat if you have. Arnie, are you ready for it? If it goes back to 30, you are all in on Palantir. It would be a big hit to your portfolio. How would you mentally deal with that?
Like those are the situations where when you start to think of it ideally, you say, "Oh, at 30, yeah, I would love to add, yeah, sure." But then when, as you see, like minus 5%, it's like maybe, situations change a little bit, especially when you are overexposed. And I think that's the keyword. If you are overexposed, then you would become like very sensitive, because maybe you are overexposed compared with like the portfolio size, compared with what you are mentally ready, prepared to digest. And I personally saw some people even going on leverage like already these days. And for me, like that's a dangerous territory. Like I would never ever consider, well, I don't do leverage, but I would never ever consider going leverage when the price is already like that.
Yeah.
So I personally would support that, I think, if we go back to 30, but just because I'm mentally prepared, also in terms of portfolio and cash aside, that if something very bad happened for the stock, not the business, I'm in a good position to increase my buffer again.
Right.
If it doesn't, still fine. If the thesis breaks for whatever reason, then what you do is just another valuation. In terms of community, I think the old guys like us are more mentally prepared, but despite they would be like, that would be painful to see.
Yeah, because we've all gone through, I think, 10 quarters of crappy earnings in regards to stock price. It's only been the past 2 months really that we've seen this explosion.
I mean, from 30 to 35 is like a 30% drop. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, we have been through that actually multiple times. But all the people that joined the stock while it was having a positive momentum and only saw that, like even like a -7, -10% can makes you fear out. Imagine at the beginning of August, it was more or less that situation. People were not used to boom.
Yeah, and during the Robinhood call, you were there in the chat, Arnie. You saw Palantir fell 2% after hours is like 42.50, and everyone in the chat was like, "What's going on with Palantir?
Why Palantir down?"
Yeah, and I'm like, "Well, yeah, down 2%. 2% is 2%, but it's like it's 2%. Like, what? Like, are we ready for 20%, dude? Like, because it happens. It could indeed happen. You know.
Well, that really tells you about the sensitivity that people can have. If like a -2%, which is like literally absolutely routine for a stock with such a high beta, imagine like seriously a -15, -20.
Yeah.
Which could happen, by the way. We don't know.